Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a truly atmospheric, honestly terrifying piece of Indian folklore. We're breaking down a classic tale that mashes up a desolate, cursed train station with some intense, ancient tantric survival tactics. If you're at all fascinated by how cultural lore blends with psychological horror, you are definitely in for a treat with this one. We're going to systematically unpack the whole story, pulling apart the illusions, the deep-rooted folklore, and the mechanics of exactly how our protagonist survived. Let's get right into it.
After sunset, this station is guarded by death. Those who didn't get a grave still search for prey. Just imagine stepping off a train in the middle of nowhere and hearing that. That's the chilling warning delivered by a mysterious station master to our main character. And it's the absolute perfect hook, right? It instantly establishes the stakes. We aren't just dealing with a spooky shadow shifting in the corner here. We're dealing with active, hungry entities trapped between worlds. Let's look at exactly how our protagonist walked straight into their trap.
So, the story actually kicks off in a super grounded, cozy setting. Picture this, we're at Madan's tea stall in a quiet little corner of Rudrapur village. It's a stormy evening, dark gray clouds have completely swallowed the sun, the wind is absolutely howling. And this sudden, ominous weather acts as the inciting incident. It prompts the village elder, a guy named Gopal Kaka, who is highly respected for his deep knowledge of ancient tantric mantras, to recount this terrifying night from his youth. The contrast between the safety of the tea stall and the impending horror of his memory is just brilliant storytelling. Now, this entire nightmare unfolds over just a few rapid, terrifying hours. As a young man, Kaka gets a letter from a friend summoning him to Chandanpur. He steps off his train at this unknown, completely desolate station right at midnight. By roughly 1 a.m., a sudden, violent downpour forces him to go find shelter. Within the next hour, the deadly trap is fully sprung. And finally, by dawn, the terrifying reality of what he just survived is exposed by the morning sun. Mapping it out like this really grounds us in the escalating tension of that night.
Okay, so right after he arrives, Kaka bumps into this tall man in a black coat with these deep, sunken eyes. The station master. And the warnings this guy gives are incredibly explicit. The station is drenched in this eerie, foggy yellow light. The master tells him, straight up, that spirits of people who were brutally murdered in the old railway godown, or warehouse, roam the area freely. They are actively seeking living travelers to satisfy their hunger. He literally tells Kaka to lock himself inside the cabin until the next train, warning him that stepping outside means certain death.
And this sets up a classic horror dynamic. On one side, you have youthful arrogance. Young Gopakaka had just learned some secret tantric skills, and, well, he felt invincible. To be young and totally oblivious to massive supernatural red flags, right? But on the other side, you have the supernatural threat, the actual, deadly reality of this cursed station that he is severely underestimating. It's the perfect recipe for disaster.
The trap officially starts with the weather. A sudden, blinding, torrential downpour forces Kaka to run toward the only shelter he can see, that old railway godown. As he gets closer, the air just gets thick with this overwhelming, putrid smell of rotting meat. Standing at the doorway is a man in a dhoti with a completely blank, peaceful face, honestly like a corpse. He warmly invites Kaka inside, but here's the most horrifying detail. When Kaka steps in, the floor isn't cold and wet from the rain. It's warm. And it's sticky, like fresh blood. He has walked right into the spider's web.
Which brings us to the exact moment of psychological fracture. Kaka is sitting on a wooden bench in this bizarre, suffocating room. His sixth sense is absolutely screaming at him that something is wrong. And then the man in the dhoti looks right at him and asks this chilling question. Do you believe in ghosts? Are you scared? Now, when Kaka boldly replies that he believes but isn't afraid, the entire facade shatters.
The illusion violently breaks down. The man starts laughing, but it doesn't sound human. It sounds like dry bones aggressively clashing together. The temperature inside the godown just violently plummets. From a pitch-black room nearby, these horrifying sounds start echoing out. The sound of chewing, of bones snapping. The entity drops its disguise completely and declares that it's eaten enough old dry meat. It is ready for a fresh feast, a young feast. Let's take a quick second to define exactly what Kaka is facing here, because this isn't your standard run-of-the-mill lingering spirit. According to regional folklore, this is a Brahma Daitya or a Nar Bhakshi Pret, basically a highly powerful, cannibalistic ghost. These entities are usually born from cursed individuals who were so consumed by intense greed or hatred while they were alive that after a violent death, they remain bound to the earthly realm just to consume the living.
The climax kicks off with this incredibly overwhelming visual. Kokor yells at the entity to stay back, but it just starts floating in the air. Pitch black smoke pours from its fingers, and it commands the very ground to tear open. The singular threat suddenly multiplies into a literal army of human skeletons. Wrapped in that same black smoke, they rise right up out of the go-down floor. Surrounding Kokora, driven by the entity's command to twist his neck and make soup from his bones. Literally bone soup.
But Kaka is not helpless. He unleashes this layered, ancient tantric defense. First, he forces his eyes shut, blocking out the sheer terror of it all, and mentally invokes his guru to keep his courage from breaking. Second, he pulls these enchanted dry roots and black seeds from a secret pocket and throws them into the air. Third, he starts chanting a powerful Agori mantra, Om, Hreem, Kleem, Agor Roop I. With every single word, a blinding blue light fills the room, turning the skeletons into smoke. Finally, as the main ghost lunges, Kaka casts his ultimate weapon, the Agni Ban, or Fire Arrow Mantra, throwing up a blazing wall of fire right in front of him.
And here is the explosive resolution. The ghost, totally enraged and arrogantly claiming that it is the king of this domain, leaps directly at Kaka's throat. But it crashes headfirst right into that tantric wall of fire. The entity writhes in absolute agony, dripping black blood from its terrifying form before vanishing completely in a massive, deafening explosion. The sheer power of the ancient teachings completely overpowered the raw hunger of the ghost. Kaka actually passes out right then and there from the intense spiritual exhaustion of the battle. When he finally comes to, golden morning sunlight is filtering in, but the environment around him is completely different from the terrifying, sensory-rich trap from the night before. The go-down is just a massive ruin. The roof is caved in, cobwebs are everywhere, rusted machines are buried under thick dust. There was no wooden bench. There was no dark back room. The entire environment he had been interacting with was a complex, sensory illusion cast by the entity just to trap its prey.
So, you have to wonder, why was this entity so incredibly powerful? What was the anchor holding it there? Well, during the fight, the ghost made this enraged confession, screaming out the number 20. 20 years. Why 20 years? Turns out, exactly 20 years ago, a horrific massacre took place in that very go-down. He was the leader of a group of bandits who died there, and their remains were still trapped within those walls. Kaka manages to flee the ruined station and makes it to his friend Jaginder's house, looking pale and completely drained. Jaginder confirms the terrifying local history for him. A massive robbery had occurred at that go-down, where bandits ruthlessly murdered the guards. The bandit leader himself was shot dead by police right on that spot, but his soul was so heavily bound by his extreme greed for the gold that he mutated into that cannibalistic pret. Jaginder explains that the station master and the man in the go-down weren't even separate ghosts. They were all complex interactive illusions spun by this one entity to lure human souls. The situation got so incredibly bad that the railways had to officially shut the entire station down due to all the mysterious disappearances.
Let's bring this all the way back to the frame story. Kaka finishes telling this harrowing tale. Back at the tea stall in Rudrapur, it is wrapped in an absolute, suffocating silence. The villagers are pale, just tightly clutching their cups, and then suddenly an owl hoots loudly from a nearby tree, and the entire group practically jumps out of their skin. The tea stall owner quickly shutters his shop, and the men huddle together, rushing home into the dark night. The memory of the cursed station has successfully infected a whole new audience.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. As we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a really provocative question to ponder. If the physical body dies, can vices like endless greed and deep hatred truly keep a monster alive in the shadows? This folktale suggests that our darkest traits don't just disappear. They can anchor us, mutate us, and create horrors that linger long after we're gone. It's a pretty terrifying thought to leave you with. Thanks for joining me today, and keep your curiosity sharp.